I'm Melvin Jackson, and you're watching 50 Shades of Dashiki.
So whenever we're talking about the human body, one of the biggest things that we look at is we do look at x-rays. The reason we look at x-rays is because x-rays are a telltale for what's happening in the body. One of the things that I've gotten extremely good at is being able to have a conversation with someone to see subjectively how they feel and be able to like take that and actually take it to the x-ray and go, okay, this is why you feel that way and this is how we can get it better. So I'm going to show you an x-ray, but first I want to explain to you what we're going to see. So when you look at the x-ray, what's going to happen is it's going to show up just like this. This is just a model of the spine. This would be like you're facing that way. So think of a side view. Biggest things I look for on the x-ray is I look for the bones to be nice and square, okay? In between the bones, you'll see there's a nice open space. And then in the back of the joint, there should be an opening, and that's where that nerve is going to come out of. So what I look for is I look for this structure to be very, very strong. I want the integrity of the bone to be strong, the disc to be strong, and I want the nerve to be able to flow freely. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is that if you start to have what's called like degenerative disc disease or even degenerative joint disease, this area where the disc is will start to collapse and close. The more this area closes, the more direct pressure you'll put directly on top of that nerve, which is not what we want, right? So when you look on an x-ray, this is what I expect when I see normal. So this right here is a normal x-ray. Biggest thing that I'm looking for on here is I'm looking for the curve. If the curve is there, what that tells me is that the area and structure are strong. It tells me that the bone is strong, it tells me that the discs are strong, and it tells me that the nerves most likely don't have any irritation on them. That's what I'm looking for. So when you look on it, this is one of the first things I look for. I go, okay, is the curve there? If it's there, then we're starting in the right position. Unfortunately, what happens is that over time, whether it is something traumatic that happens or whether it's something that's repetitive that happens that you do on a regular basis that starts to wear out the joints, this area will start to straighten out. As an example, I'll show you what I mean. So note what the curve looks like here, and then look at what this one looks like. And so when you look on the top of it, number one, first thing I notice is remember what the curve was like, right? If you look at the curve, see the curve here, and then note what happens here. It's curved on the bottom, but on the top, it's extremely straight. What's happening here is because this has gotten so straight, the weight from the head is putting too much stress and pressure directly through the joints. And what will end up happening is that instead of these joints remaining open like this very top one, all of a sudden they start to close like this. So you look here, it's open in the front, but it's closing back here. Same thing here. Look how open it is here. It's closing in the back. Open in the front, closing in the back. The biggest thing that we look for and the biggest thing we want to avoid is if this joint was to fully collapse, right? If this joint fully collapses, what happens is it hits bone on bone. Two things happen when you hit bone on bone. Number one, pain's going to go through the roof. Number two, somebody's going to recommend a surgery, right? Which are both things that we want to completely avoid. And so what we have to do is we've got to make sure that we're doing the right things in these areas, not only to open up the space, but to break up scar tissue within the area and start to increase function. So when we look at this, what we know, this is our problem area here. The tricky thing about this is that it will just continue to progress. Think of it like a cavity in a tooth. You got a cavity in a tooth and you don't do anything for it. What we know is that it's just gonna get worse, right? This is the exact same way. If we leave this here and we do nothing for it, this is gonna be an issue for you down the road. Now, the tricky thing is this gonna be bad for you in 3 months? Is it gonna be bad for you in 6 months? I don't know, right? Sometimes it happens much quicker. Sometimes it'll stretch itself out, but make no mistake, this right here is gonna get worse, and at some point, we're gonna see the pain greatly increase. So moral of the story when you're dealing in the spine is that, number one, like I said, we want to make sure that the spine is very strong as we look at it. And the last thing we want is any type of breakdown that's happening, because once it starts, it's just gonna continue down that way. So this is worth you getting checked out.